Welcome, and thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Jessica Lounsbury with the Office of Alumni Engagement here at McMaster. Joining me behind the scenes this evening are my colleagues Dave Dawson and Lindsay D'Souza. In this evening's webinar is part of our Health and Wellness series. A few housekeeping items before we start. We will be sharing links to the 2 recipes Hannah will be demonstrating this evening in the chat, and we will also share them in a follow-up email along with a recording of the talk within a week's time. When the webinar wraps up this evening, a link to a short survey will pop up on your browser. We hope you will take 2 minutes of your time to share your thoughts with us on this session. A reminder, if you have any questions for Hannah this evening, please type them in using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and we'll have time to answer a few as we go, as well as a few towards the end of the webinar. It's my pleasure to introduce you to McMaster alumni Hannah Sunderani. She's the creator of the popular blog Two Spoons, as well as the Two Spoons app. She is an editor at the Feed, a contributor to Best of Vegan, and a recipe contributor to Thrive and One Green Planet. Her recipes have also been featured in numerous magazines, including Better Homes and Gardens, Simply Gluten-Free, Veg News, House and Home, Elle Canada, and Cosmopolitan. For those of you turning in live to watch this webinar this evening, we'll also be holding a random draw to win one of Hannah's cookbook, Two Spoons. We'll be in touch with the lucky winners by the end of the week. Without further delay, here to share 2 of her delicious recipes with us and talk vegan and plant-based cooking, please welcome Hannah.
Hi, everyone. It's so nice to be here. So I guess I'll just get started right away. So first of all, I know we just did an introduction, but I am also a Mac alumni. I started at Mac in 2007. I studied communications, and I really feel that it shaped me into the person that I am today. And it really is such a privilege to be here talking to you guys and sharing my recipe and a little bit about my career, which I really don't think would have happened if it weren't for my time at Mac. So I'm so happy to be here. And today I am going to be sharing my 2 recipes. One is my mushroom bourguignon, which is a recipe from the Two Spoons Cookbook that actually launched in June with Penguin Random House. You can get it on Amazon, you can get it at Indigo or any of your independent bookstores. And this is what the recipe looks like. I really love this mushroom bourguignon because it's really easy to make. It's a stew, so it's so simple. Basically, we're just throwing everything in a pot, which is so great if like you're a student or you just really don't have a lot of time on your hands to cook, but you really want a meal to impress. It's a really good one for entertaining friends, or if you're having date night, or even if you just want a really cozy, delicious meal for fall. And then the second recipe we're going to do, I'm going to bring you over to the other side of my kitchen. We're going to be making some Snickers stuffed dates, which is so perfect thinking about Halloween coming around, but it's like sort of a healthy spin on it just for ingredients, and you can really feel good about it. Plus it makes a really good snack to go. So if like you've got classes or if you're just starting a new job and you're going into the office, then it's a really good one to bring. So we'll start first with the mushroom bourguignon. This recipe is going to take about 30 minutes to make, but there is some waiting time while we're sauteing and stuff. So Jessica's going to ask me a couple questions that you guys asked in advance, and we can answer that as we go. So we're going to start by taking our mushrooms, and I have pre-chopped everything for the purpose of this video, just to keep things quick. So we're going to be adding half of the mushrooms to our pot, and then we're also going to be adding some butter. So I'm using vegan butter. All my recipes are vegan and plant-based. So we're going to be adding 2 tablespoons of butter, and we're just going to brown these mushrooms. So I'm going to turn my cooker on, and then we're going to brown it in batches. And the reason for that, I don't know how well-versed everyone is in cooking, but if you overcrowd mushrooms, they tend to kind of get like soggy and gray and like just like a really like not nice texture, which is why I like to do it in batches, because there's going to be a lot of water content releasing and it's going to help evaporate that water. And then we get that really nice brown mushroom, which are the mushrooms that we like. If anyone thinks that they don't like mushrooms, or they have friends who say they don't like mushrooms, it's probably because they've eaten mushrooms that haven't been cooked properly. So this is how you do it. So Jessica, this is going to be a little bit of lag time while we're waiting for these to brown. So if you wanted to ask some of the questions that were pre-prepared, I can answer some of those.
Sure. Actually, to start, I will just, we already have a question about
Okay.
browning the mushrooms. Someone's asking if we can brown the mushrooms in olive oil or another oil.
Yes, so absolutely you can do it in olive oil. The reason why I picked vegan butter, A, is because it's a classic when you're thinking of like traditional mushroom bourguignon. You're traditionally using butter. I know that when it comes to vegan butter, sometimes the ingredient list like isn't so healthy, or if you are trying to find a healthier version, then you're paying a premium, which isn't always ideal. So if you wanted to replace that with olive oil, 100% you could. Another good recommendation that I would give is coconut oil. It's a really, really good substitute as well. I also saw that someone asked, what is vegan butter? It's basically just a solidified version of what we're used to when we're thinking of butter. Usually it's a mix of oils. The one that I'm using is actually cashew and coconut based. It depends on the brand, what that consists of, but typically it's supposed to kind of mimic a traditional butter where it's cold at room temperature, cold in the fridge, and then it stays solid at room temperature, which is what you'll also find in a coconut oil, which is why I say that's such a good substitute.
Oh, that's great. Someone's asking what your favorite brand of vegan butter is, if you have a favorite.
So I'm going to show you actually the one that I have in the fridge. This is the brand of vegan butter that I use. It's the Miyoko's. This one is a little bit more expensive. It's a little more pricey. And so I typically try to save it for ingredients where I really think that the butter is going to make a difference. For mushroom bourguignon, I do really like it because it really kind of brings that traditional like rich flavor. But as I said, a coconut oil would be a really good substitute. I wouldn't use this for something like baking because all those other flavors are going to kind of be masked. And so I would kind of save this style vegan butter for something that you're really going to taste it. But this is my favorite brand.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. And I imagine on the recipe that you've provided, which Lindsay has shared in the chat, it'll explain how many mushrooms you need and what kind. But
Yeah.
Someone's asking, is there another type of mushroom you can add to the recipe, or do you have to use the one you've included in the recipe?
Yeah, you can use whatever type mushroom you want. So in the recipe, I say it's a pound. So if you prefer a different type of mushroom, if you want like to get a white button mushroom or an oyster mushroom, 100% you can do it in this recipe. Chanterelles would also be really good. Just kind of make sure that you're sticking to around 1 pound. One of the things that I love about cooking is that it's not an exact science like baking. I feel like with baking, you kind of have to be really consistent. But when it comes to cooking, like we can always kind of like shift a recipe to kind of suit our taste. So 100% yes, you can definitely pick a different type of mushroom if you prefer.
That's great. And as they're still browning there, are you adding more in there?
Yeah, I'm adding a little bit more just because I noticed that I probably didn't add in like half.
Okay.
I think I was just shy of it. So I just threw in a couple more.
No problem. Someone's asking, and again, with regards to the recipe, what's a good substitute for red wine? And someone else is asking, what can you use instead of red wine if you don't want to include the alcohol, even though the alcohol cooks out most of the time?
Yeah, so in this recipe, I do use red wine. I actually do give the recommendation that if you don't want to use wine at all, you can just substitute with more vegetable broth. That would be my recommendation. In terms of what would be a substitute for red wine in general, it really depends on the recipe. Sometimes red wine really helps to add that sort of rich, bold flavor. Which is really nice in the mushroom bourguignon, but we also have other things that are adding in rich flavor for this recipe. Like we're going to be using tamari, we're going to be using tomato paste. And so even though I love the red wine, it isn't a make or break. So if you wanted to throw in the vegetable broth instead, that'll work really well. So yeah, that would kind of be my recommendation for that.
Sounds good. Someone, just to get on the wine, someone's asking, they're racing ahead, but what full body is recommended, like a Merlot?
So I honestly, I think it's really, when it comes to cooking, I don't think it really matters the type of wine you're using. I would just recommend to go with more of a full bodied. A Merlot would be a really good option. I'm actually using, I'm using a red wine that was a gift from my husband's work, where like they actually just created their own red wine. And I think like it's a really good opportunity when you're cooking to use wines that like maybe you don't want to drink, because when we're using it for cooking, it's not like you have to be buying like the most expensive wine, the like finest wine. You can really just use like a generic, like cheap wine. So if there's anything that is in your cabinet that you are really just not keen on drinking, then I would say cook with it.
Oh, that's perfect. Thanks. And someone's asking for the mashed potatoes, which I know you've made ahead of time to save on time for our webinar this evening, but someone's asking, do you use store-bought ones or do you make your own?
So I do make my own mashed potatoes. I have a recipe that goes with this mushroom bourguignon really well, and it's a part of the recipe. For the sake of today's cooking session, I've actually pre-made the mashed potatoes in advance because I just wanted to save on time and I really want to get to that second recipe for you guys. But I always kind of prefer the homemade version over store-bought. However, I feel like you kind of have to do what works for your household. So if that means that you are making the mushroom bourguignon at home, but you're buying the mashed potatoes, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Yeah, you make it work to what you think that you're able to do. Cooking should always be fun. It should never feel daunting or overwhelming. So maybe you'll start by making the mushroom bourguignon and buying the mashed potatoes. And then maybe once you feel comfortable, you can add in creating the mashed potatoes at home.
That's great. Thank you. Do we have a little bit more time for more questions or?
Yes, we do. Yeah.
Okay. Just want to make sure you don't need to move on to the next step. So,
no.
Back to the mushroom cleaning. Yes. How do you clean mushrooms before cooking? And someone else had said they've been told they should just be brushing the dirt off rather than washing them. What's your thoughts and opinions?
Yeah, I think that's such a good question. And I'm so glad that someone asked that. I'm just going to turn this off the heat and I'm going to grab my mushrooms and I'm going to show you guys how to do it because I know I prepared the mushrooms in advance. But I have some here and I'm going to show you my method. So you should definitely not be washing your mushrooms. And if you have been washing your mushrooms, it's okay. I used to do that too. The reason why we don't want to wash them is because they actually have a lot of water content in them already. And we want to be getting the water out of them. We don't want to be adding in water. Also, again, it's going to end up resulting in those like gray, gross tasting mushrooms, which is what we don't want. So here is a dirty mushroom. I always use like a piece of paper towel. You can also use just like a clean kitchen towel if you prefer. And we're basically just gonna wipe the mushroom. We're gonna just kind of wipe the top of it until we get off all that excess dirt. And you can see it actually like comes off really well with this approach of just kind of wiping it away. Some people buy like mushroom brushes, which is just like a gentle sort of like cleaning brush. And it just kind of strips away that dirt on top. But personally, I just use what I have at home. I don't think it's necessary. I'm also like not a huge fan of like single purpose products. So I would say if that approach works for you, it's what I do at home. And I think it works really well.
That's great. Thank you.
So I'm just going to continue on for 1 second.
Yeah, absolutely.
These mushrooms are nice and brown. So I'm going to take them off of my heat and I'm going to add in the second batch and just get those going. And we can definitely answer more questions while we go. But I'll just show you, I'm adding the second batch now. And I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons more of the vegan butter. And we're just gonna fry that up. And like I said before, the reason I'm doing it in the batches is because I don't wanna overcrowd the mushrooms.
That's great. Someone's asking, if you substitute coconut oil for butter, does it add a coconut flavor to the bourguignon?
It does. So that, I actually really like that flavor and that taste. Some people don't love the taste of coconut oil. So if that's kind of where you're kind of falling in that idea of using the coconut oil, you could also replace with avocado oil, or you can replace with olive oil. It's up to you, whichever you prefer.
That's great. Someone writes, my mom always insisted on peeling off the outer layer of the mushroom. Is this not a good idea?
So, I mean, I don't think it's a bad idea. It sounds like a lot of work. And I've never done that in recipes, nor never seen it. But if that's something that you guys do in your family, by all means, like, go ahead and keep doing it. My mom used to always peel sweet potatoes. And it wasn't until I was like in my mid-20s where I realized that actually sweet potato skins are really delicious. So now I never peel my sweet potatoes, but I grew up in a family where we never had sweet potato skins. So I think it just like depends on your family.
Yeah. Have you eaten a plant-based diet all your life?
So I have not. Actually, my journey to vegan eating and plant-based eating sort of stemmed actually when I was in university. So I think I was in second year university, and I actually lost my boyfriend at the time to cancer, which was obviously really devastating and hard. And I feel like stress kind of always manifests itself in its own way. And for me, it really took a toll on my body and my overall health. So I had a lot of gastrointestinal problems that came up, and I went to go see a few GI specialists, and they sort of just said like I would just kind of have to live with, they diagnosed me with IBS, that I was just sort of going to have to live with it, which was really hard as a student. And I remember like having a lot of anxiety of thinking of like going to like 2 or 3 hour lectures. Like the thought of that was really, really stressful for me. And it was actually like really hard. And so I ended up turning to food for medicine. And so at the time I did this elimination diet, I cut out meat and dairy. And then I also cut out gluten at the time. I'm no longer entirely gluten-free, but I love gluten-free recipes. And it just made a huge difference to my overall health. And then from there, I feel like it was just kind of an easy segue for me to get into the world of plant-based and vegan eating, because they really do kind of go hand in hand. So I started to kind of learn about the benefits to the environment and the benefits to animal humanity. And then I just felt like the right decision to go vegan.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Just based on that, someone pre-asked a question about any advice you might have for a person who's trying to shift to plant-based eating.
Yeah. So I love this question because I feel like I get it a lot. And I feel like when we think of adopting a vegan diet, I think it can feel really overwhelming because people don't know where to begin or how to cook for this diet. And I feel like I can totally relate to that, because when I had these health issues and I did this elimination diet, it was such a new form of eating for me, and I did not know where to begin. And so I actually really relied on things like cookbooks. At the time, Oshi Glows had just come out with a vegan cookbook, and I sort of like used it as a Bible for like learning how to cook. I feel like now we're so lucky because there's so many resources available for vegan food. And one of the best things is that there's a lot of recipes that you can now veganize. For example, like this mushroom bourguignon is a spin-off of traditional bourguignon, which is a beef bourguignon. So I would say if you're interested in dabbling in vegan plant-based eating, first of all, don't think that, you have to give up your favorites. It's just sort of making a shift and modifications. And then I would say put in a quick Google search for those favorite recipes, and then add the word like plus vegan and see what comes up. and then try making it, because I think that you'll be really surprised that, these recipes are really delicious and they didn't involve any meat or animal product. And so it really isn't like you're making this huge compromise on taste. You still get to eat and enjoy all the things that you love. It's just maybe we're adding a different ingredient here and there to get to the same result.
Oh, that's great and totally makes sense.
Yeah.
And just while you're finishing sauteing those mushrooms, we have two potato related questions. So someone's curious asking how you eat your sweet potato skins. And then
Yeah.
the second question is for mashed potatoes, could you use yellow potatoes?
Yeah. So for the mashed potatoes, I would say I use white potatoes in the recipe. You can definitely use yellow potatoes. Russet potatoes would be really good. I would avoid a red skin potato because they are quite firm. One of the great things about red skin potatoes is that you can kind of boil them and they keep their shape, which is great if you want to like have like a chopped potato. But in terms of mashed potatoes, it makes it a bit difficult because when you're mashing it, it's not really kind of giving in. Whereas with something like a white potato, a yellow potato, or a russet potato, it's going to kind of give in. It's not going to be like too starchy and you're not going to end up with a mashed potato that's really gummy. One of the other recommendations I would give to not get a really gummy mashed potato is not to over mix your potato. I think actually the process of making potatoes is really fun because you're just kind of like mashing and talking. And sometimes it can work to your disadvantage because you end up over mashing it. And that's when you end up with this like gummy, like weird texture. So I would say just be careful of that. And then you're pretty much good if you're picking those lighter skin potatoes or a russet potato.
Oh, that's great. Thanks.
Yeah.
And then the one person was asking how you eat your sweet potato skins.
Yeah, so the sweet potato skin. So, I mean, I usually just like tonight I ate before because I have a little son. So we ate before I'm cooking this for you tonight. And I just did like roasted sweet potato and I basically just left the skin on. I drizzled it with some olive oil and some sea salt. And then I cooked it in the oven at 400 for like 30 minutes. I actually have a really good recipe on my blog for sweet potato wedges, and those have the skins on and they're really, really good. So if you're looking for a good sweet potato recipe, then I highly recommend that. I'm just going to quickly continue. So I'm adding in the shallots now with the carrots and the garlic. I pre-chopped this, but you can obviously do all this at home. And a little bit of salt. And then we're gonna add in the remaining vegan butter. And again, we're just gonna saute this. And then this kind of wraps up the sauteed version section, of this recipe. And then we kind of get on to adding all the flavors. I will also show you what the mushrooms look like. So they're nice and browned. I've cut them really small. You'll notice in the cookbook that I've done them more chunky, which is what I've recommended in the recipe. So you'll see they're more chunky, which I actually like if you want to kind of mimic that like beef bourguignon because it's coming in like these different chunks and different textures, which I personally love. The only reason why I've chopped them so fine is because I have a 1-year-old at home. So it's more for a choking hazard so that he can enjoy it too.
Well, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Are we good to go for a few more questions?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay. Someone's asking what your favorite spices and or other ways of adding flavor to veggies and vegan food in general.
Oh my gosh. Okay, if you guys saw my spice rack in my kitchen, it's like out of control. It's also very disorganized. So I think it's a really good question. I love all spices. I think one of the big misconceptions when we're thinking about vegan food is that it's really bland and boring and you're going to be stuck eating salads. And I think a lot of the time why people like gravitate towards meat-based dishes is because they there is all that flavor. And in my experience with cooking and learning how to cook vegan, we're actually achieving the same flavors because all that flavor is coming from the spices that you're using. Chicken is basically, when you think about it, if you cooked a chicken at home with nothing in it, it would be quite bland in flavor, but it's when we add like the lemon and we top it with some herbs de Provence or thyme or rosemary, that's when it starts tasting so delicious. And it's the exact same with vegan cooking. So I would say some of my spices that I often really gravitate towards is a chili powder. I love a chili powder when I'm cooking tofu because it really brings in that like meaty, warm spices. It's really great for something like tacos. I also use it to make like a tofu scramble. Turmeric is also a really good recipe. When we're thinking of any type of curry spices like turmeric, cumin, anything like that, then I use that a lot, like to make things like a dal recipe or any type of like chickpea curry or sweet potato curry. I also really love dried dill because it adds a lot of like brightness and freshness. So speaking of roasting potatoes or roasting sweet potato, I will often just sprinkle on a little bit of dried dill because it really does add that like really nice brightness with a little bit of salt. It's so good and it's so easy. Yeah, I feel like when it comes to spices, don't be afraid of them. They help enhance a recipe and you can always add to taste. So if you're not really sure how you feel about cumin, just add a little bit and then give it a taste. And if you like the taste, you can add a little more. That's what I love about cooking is it really is an art and it's an experiment. Nothing is set in stone. And yeah, you can play with the results.
Oh, that's great. And someone's asking if you can explain what tamari is.
Yeah, so tamari is like a soy sauce. This is the tamari I'm using. So basically it's like soy sauce. I think the difference, don't quote me, but I think the difference between the two is like how they're fermented. And I typically just grab the tamari. I find that the flavor is a little bit more subtle and less salty, which is why I usually gravitate towards a tamari versus a soy sauce. Also, I find with tamari, you can find gluten-free versions. So if you are gluten-free, they have a lot of really great versions of gluten-free tamari that you can use. And I really love it in vegan cooking because it really adds this it really elevates a dish and adds this really nice umami flavor. So we use it a lot when we're cooking.
Oh, that's great. What is your favorite way to prepare tofu?
Oh my gosh, everyone has such good questions tonight. So I think it depends. So I have two recipes on my blog and I kind of go back and forth as to which one is my favorite. One is a pan-fried tofu, which I do on the cooktop. And the other one is an oven-baked tofu where I kind of coat it in sort of like a very light crust. And I use arrowroot starch or you can use cornstarch. And then I add in those spices that we were talking about. So I'll add in some salt and some garlic powder and a couple other things. And they're just like, you can literally like pop them, like pop in your mouth, like popcorn chicken. They're so good. For the stovetop one, what I do is I'll add like olive oil to my pan and then I'll fry it up. And then on the side, I'll make a sauce. So with that one, I've got like miso and tamari. I think there's lemon in there, a little bit of cayenne. I make the sauce. I also have maple syrup in it. I just remembered. And then when I'm done pan frying it, I get rid of the oil. So I just like tip the oil into like a little bowl like this. And then I add in that juicy mixture that I just talked about. And it really caramelizes and it's like so tasty. It's really good on rice with like some broccoli that you roasted in the oven or even steamed. I find with the pan fried version, you are using a lot more oil. So when we're thinking from like a health aspect, I know some people don't love adding a lot of oil to their diet. However, I think that mentality of having oil in your diet is kind of changing. I know I don't really focus too heavily on that. And I know like people who are like keto, like love oil. So I think it really depends on your own personal preference, whether like you're okay with having a little bit more oil. If you're not, then I would recommend the one in the oven because it's using less oil and it's got like a really great crunchy, delicious flavor. So yeah, I don't have an answer as to which one I like more because I love them both.
Well, that's great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so I'm just really quickly going to show you what it looks like in my pan right now. So I'm going to take my phone off my tripod. So I've really just kind of softened these shallots here. Sorry, I'm going to actually turn it so that you guys have a horizontal visual. And now I'm going to kind of add in some of those flavors that I was talking about. So here I have some tomato paste that's going to add a really beautiful umami flavor. And I'm also going to add that tamari that we were talking about. Again, adds like a really rich flavor. We're also going to add in a little bit of maple syrup. And I know you guys might be thinking like, whoa, we're adding some sugar with the maple syrup, but it's so minor and it's really that maple syrup flavor that we're looking for. I'm just going to mix that. And now I'm going to put you guys back on my tripod stand, but I just wanted to show you kind of how it's looking. Oh, sorry. Okay. Really quick, I'm going to continue. So I've got some gluten-free all-purpose flour here, which I'm going to add to my pot right now. And the purpose for this is that it's going to help thicken the broth. And I'm adding it in before I add my liquids because I sort of want to stir this flour into the recipe. Otherwise, it's going to, if I add it after I've added the liquids, it's going to get clumpy and like no one wants to bite into a flour clump. Like that's just not tasty. So I like adding in the flour and kind of dispersing it through the vegetables before I start adding in the liquids. So I'm just quickly going to do that. And then we're going to move on to adding the liquids. So we're going to add the 1 cup of red wine. And like I said, if you aren't interested in adding wine, that's no problem. You can also add broth. We have some really nice rich flavors with the maple syrup, with the tomato paste, and with the tamari. So it's not a make or break, but I do love that flavor of the red wine. And we can also remember that because we're simmering it, that alcohol is going to disperse. And so we're not getting that alcohol. We're really just getting the taste. So I'm just going to simmer this. I'll show you again what it looks like. Okay, so this is just simmering together. And also you can see that it's thickening, and that's because we added the flour. And then we're going to finish with the broth. We're going to mix that.
Just on the flour topic, someone's asking if it cooks the flour sort of like a roux before you add the liquid.
It sort of does, yeah. It sort of like turns it into like, yeah, I would say it does kind of achieve that. And then when you're adding in the liquid, it thins it out into a sauce. So you'll definitely notice like a very like interesting texture when you're adding in the flour. And I think it might make people think like, oh, like, have I done something wrong? Because it is going to get like a little bit thick. It is going to get a little bit pasty. But once you add in the liquid, you'll see that it disperses really well. And then we are kind of achieving that like really nice sauce, which is what we're looking for. And then finally, what we're going to do is we're going to add back those mushrooms that we cooked up. So we're going to add this, and then a little bit more flavor. I've got some fresh thyme here. And then I'm also going to be adding 2 bay leaves. Speaking of herbs and spices, these are definitely something I use a lot when I'm making soups and stews. I actually threw in 3 by accident, but it's not a concern. And we're just gonna let this simmer for the next 10 or 15 minutes. But you can see this is sort of what it's looking like. And I'll flip my screen back. And I can answer a few more questions. Also, Jessica, I'm thinking we can move on to the final recipe and then come back at the very end, and I can serve the bourguignon so you guys can see what it looks like with the mashed potatoes, but I do kind of want to give it like 10 minutes to kind of simmer. If that works for you?
That works. Would you like to do the next recipe, or a couple more questions first and then?
Well, I'm going to bring you over to get started on the next recipe, but I can answer questions as we go. Wonderful. If that works for you guys. Yeah.
That works well.
Cool. Okay, so I'm just putting the lid on, and yeah, ask away. Well, this is my kitchen, by the way.
Someone's asking, is it possible to freeze any leftovers?
Oh yeah, 100% you can freeze. I'm not 100% sure about the mashed potatoes, how well those would freeze. But the stew, yes, I've frozen it before. You can just, one thing that I love to do actually when I'm freezing recipes is I sort of portion them out in glass containers, and then everything is like pre-ready for you. So then you're not like pulling out like a huge thing and then you have to eat the same thing for like 4 days. So I would say portion them into like little separate containers as to like how much you think you can eat. I think the recipe serves 4 to 6. So yeah, you can portion that out and then just pull them out whenever you feel like you want to have bourguignon for dinner.
Wonderful. And just before we move on to the next recipe, we have a couple people asking, what kind of flour and broth do you use, and do you recommend a vegetable broth recipe?
So sorry, I'm just thinking of the question. So the flour that I used for this recipe is Bob's Red Mill gluten-free all-purpose flour. I just find that flour works really well. They've got like a 1-to-1 ratio, which I love because I think a lot of the time when we're looking at gluten-free flours, we don't know what the substitute is to traditional, whereas Bob's Red Mill has just like taken out all that science for you. And it really is just like a 1-to-1. So if you're using 2 tablespoons of regular flour, you can just substitute it for the gluten-free flour, 2 tablespoons, and you know you're going to be fine. The second question was, what broth do I use? So I'm a bit lazy. I actually buy my broth. I don't typically make it at home. I have done it and it's delicious. I just find in terms of like everyday life, it's one of those things that when I don't have time, that's like one of the things that goes. Another thing is like making my own chickpeas. I used to be really good at like making all my beans at home instead of buying them canned. And then I had a baby and I was like, this is way too much effort. So when it comes to veg broth, I do typically just buy it from the grocery store. My favorite brand is Pacifica because it's organic and I find the flavors are really good. However, I've kind of tried all of them and I feel like they're generally pretty good. One thing that I actually used to do a lot, and this really depends on the space in your kitchen, but when I was a student, I didn't have like a ton of kitchen space. I was sharing a house with like my roommates, and like I had like one little cabinet where I had to store like all my food. I used to buy the organic stock cubes and then I would add the water at home because it just took up so much less space. So I'm not opposed to those as well. They're full of flavor. You can get organic versions now that like aren't full of like terrible ingredients if that's something of a concern. But yeah, so that's my story about vegetable broth.
That's wonderful. Thanks. I'll let you move on to the next recipe and then we can answer more questions as we go.
Okay, perfect. So this recipe is actually really quick, easy, and straightforward. The reason why I wanted to share it is because I think that this is such a good recipe if you guys are looking for something that you can bring to school as a snack, take on the go. If you're looking for something that's like a treat, like something like for after dinner, where you want like a sweet treat, but like maybe you don't want, like you want to pick something that's like a little bit more healthy. These are my Snickers stuffed dates. They're also so easy to make. They're like 4 or 5 ingredients and they keep well in the fridge. So like they'll literally last like 2 weeks in the fridge. And yeah, they're just really tasty. So this is what they look like. They're just like so yummy. I'm going to show you how to make them. You're going to start with some medjool dates. So you get these at the grocery store. I highly recommend the medjool dates, which are more expensive than like the traditional dates that you buy in a bag. They come with the pit in the middle, but I find it's worth it because they're really moist and very caramelly, and the other dates you're just going to end up throwing them in the bin anyway. So it's worth getting these ones. What we're going to do is we're going to make a little cut into the middle of the date, and we're going to open it up to expose the pit, which is here. We're going to pull this out and throw this away. And then we're going to stuff it with all natural peanut butter. If you're allergic to peanut butter, you can also use almond butter or whatever nut butter you prefer. It's even really good with tahini if you didn't want to do nut at all and pick like a seed instead. So yeah, you're going to fill it with that. So I will just kind of do one here for you guys to see. And I'll kind of, I wonder if I can get you guys closer to the action. Okay. So we're just going to fill it with a little bit of peanut butter, like so. And then we're going to also add some peanuts into the center. And I just love this because it adds like a really nice crunch.
I'm assuming if you used a different type of butter, you could also use a different type of nut.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're using almond butter, then you could fill it with almonds. If you're not opting in for the like a nut butter, like say you wanted to do tahini, then you could just skip the filling altogether. Sorry, you could skip the nut altogether if you wanted, and just have the tahini middle. It really depends on what you prefer. And then finally, I have melted some dark chocolate here. Basically what I've done is I've just taken some semi-sweet chocolate chips. These ones are vegan. The brand is Enjoy Life. I find it affordable and really good ingredients. So that's the brand that I've bought here. It's semi-sweet dark chocolate chips. And then you're going to add a tablespoon of coconut oil to that, and you're going to melt it in the microwave in 30-second increments until melted. It usually takes like 3 or 4 goes until melted. And then you're really just going to drizzle the chocolate on top like so. And you're just going to basically cover the date entirely in the chocolate. And you're going to do this to all your dates. The recipe, I think, makes 12 dates in total, but I'm just going to show you guys this one version because it's like the same thing over and over. And then to finish, I love a little bit of flaky sea salt. So you can sprinkle it with a little bit of sea salt flakes. I just find chocolate and salt like such a good combo. And then once you're done kind of doing them all, I've got it here on just like a cutting board, but I've lined it with a little bit of parchment paper. This can go directly in the fridge to chill, sorry. And it's going to take about 2 hours to chill entirely. And when you're done, it's going to look like this. And it's just like so ooey gooey and chocolatey and delicious, but like all the ingredients are really healthy and wholesome in comparison to a Snickers bar that we traditionally buy at a grocery store. And it's just like a really good snack. And it's also perfect for like Halloween. So I really wanted to show you guys that recipe as well.
You mentioned that they last 2 weeks in the fridge, but I don't think they'd last that long, really.
I know.
I'd eat them all before then.
I think I've eaten like 4 or 5 in a day before.
Someone noted how runny the peanut butter was. And curious, is that because it's a natural peanut butter? And is that why you put it in the fridge to help solidify it a bit more?
So this peanut butter is typically more runny. This is really just based on the brand. So the peanut butter, the all natural peanut butter, it does require a little bit of stirring and stuff, but it typically isn't as runny as this. I actually really love this brand because it's so drizzly, which is why I have it in my pantry and why I'm using it today. The brand is called Maranatha. It's double blended, so it's just super smooth. And one of the things that I find with all natural peanut butters is sometimes you are using it, but then the bottom is like so hard and chunky that you end up throwing like a quarter of it away or even like a third of it away. Whereas the Maranatha is just like really consistent all the way down, and you can buy it at Walmart. So if you're ever out at Walmart, check in the like peanut butter aisle and they should have the Maranatha brand there.
That's wonderful. And just one more question on this recipe. Someone is asking if you can substitute for the coconut oil with something like water or anything else.
Yeah. So for this recipe, when it comes to water, you definitely don't want to be adding that to chocolate. So one of the things that'll make a chocolate kind of like curdle is when it gets waterlogged. So even when you're thinking of like melting chocolate on your stovetop, you want to be very careful that we're not getting any of that steam from the water into the chocolate because it will affect the consistency. The reason why I use the coconut oil is because it really helps to kind of smoothen out the chocolate and make it very silky smooth. And you'll notice as well, I'll just show you again the final version. They kind of have like a really beautiful like sheen to them, and that's because we've used the coconut oil. However, if you are oil free, you can skip that section of adding the oil and you can do it without any oil at all, just melting the chocolate. The only thing that you'll notice is that the chocolate is a lot more thick, and it might just not drizzle the same, but you'll end up with a very similar result.
That's wonderful. And just as you're getting set there, one of our viewers has a tip saying they find storing all natural peanut butter upside down helps with the runniness.
Oh, that's such a good tip. I think I actually have peanut butter upside down in my pantry right now. Like so this is actually the brand. This is the Maranatha that I was talking about. So you can buy this at Walmart. And I always store it upside down. It's such a good tip. So like any type of nut butter, like tahini, anything, when you buy it, like the first thing you should do when it goes into the cabinet is put it upside down.
Good to know.
Yeah, such a good tip. Whoever said that. Okay, so I'm just really going to quickly show you what the bourguignon looks like right now. It looks so good. So here it is. You can see like it's gotten like beautifully thick. And we are going to serve this now. So I'm just going to grab a bowl and I'm going to make some space because I made a bit of a mess. So I've got a bowl here. And here are the mashed potatoes that I made in advance. This recipe is part of the cookbook recipe. So you guys can make this mashed potato recipe at home as well. Or like someone said, if they prefer to buy it, like totally cool. Like cooking should always be fun. It should not be overwhelming. So if you guys prefer to buy it, then I'm all for that. And now we're just going to scoop in some of the bourguignon. Oh, we also want to make sure, to fish out the thyme and bay leaf, because no one wants a bite of that. That would not be yummy. And then we're going to scoop this over our mashed potato. There we go. I'm going to do one more. Okay. And this is what the final version looks like.
It looks delicious.
Yeah, and my phone is like steaming it all up. But you guys can imagine like just how comforting and cozy this bowl is. I just find it so perfect for fall and winter. And it's one of those recipes that really does impress a crowd, but it's really effortless because we're talking about a stew. Like you're just throwing everything in a pot. And then again, a recipe that can be prepared in advance. It can be frozen. So you're taking out all that stress and pressure, but you're keeping all the yumminess.
Someone's asking if the bourguignon recipe has a protein value to it.
So this recipe is in high protein value because we're not adding in like a ton of plant-based proteins. I think actually one of the questions sort of was where you get your protein. This recipe, I would say, is not one of my high protein recipes, but there are lots of opportunities to get in protein. I often will have a lot of bean-based curries. So like, for example, I was talking about like my dal recipe that I often make, or a sweet potato chickpea curry. Another like really easy way for vegans to just add protein. I think a lot of us are probably used to doing this, especially like as students, like for breakfast, like maybe I'll make a smoothie and you'll throw in a protein powder. So there's lots of vegan varieties, but one thing that I really love to do, which is just like one single ingredient you can buy from the grocery store, is hemp hearts. So if you add 3 tablespoons of hemp hearts, is the equivalent to sort of like 1 scoop of protein powder. I think you're looking at like 12 grams of protein right there. You can also sprinkle it onto avocado toast, which is really good. And you can also make like really nice like sauces with it, like Alfredo sauces and stuff. Another really good opportunity for protein is things like peanut butter, which we used in the recipe that I just showed you. Nuts are a great form of protein. So things like peanuts or almonds, things like that. Are just great options. So although my mushroom bourguignon is not high in protein, there are lots of opportunities in other recipes to get that protein in.
That's great. Someone, just back to the bourguignon, someone is asking if you have any recommendations for mushroom substitutes in the bourguignon. And someone else is asking, could you put tofu in it to raise the protein content?
So that's a really good question. So I haven't tried tofu. I feel like that could be an interesting substitute if you were going to roast it in advance. I think that might be nice. Another thing that maybe we could add in is even like a white bean. White bean and mushroom is like a really nice combo. So if you were looking to kind of up the protein level for a recipe like this, that would probably be my recommendation. Just buying a can of like cannellé bean and throwing it in. I think that combo would work really well.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
What is the best way to prepare the mashed potatoes in advance and reheat them?
So mashed potatoes, I prepared this in advance earlier today. I just left it on my stovetop, so it's at room temperature. If I wanted to reheat it, I would actually do it in the microwave. I don't think that I would like turn on my stovetop again and warm it on the stovetop, just because I think I'd be afraid that it would get rid of too much water content and kind of affect the consistency. So my personal recommendation for that would be to do it in the microwave.
That's great. Thank you. Just going back to the protein supplement, someone's asking if you can re-say the name of it.
Oh yeah, so the protein supplement. So it's an ingredient. It's not like a powder, but it's called hemp hearts. I can actually show you what they look like if you want. I just bought a new batch because I use them all the time. I'll throw them in smoothies or I'll top it on avocado toast. So, and they've just got like a really nice nutty flavor, but they're not a nut. So again, like if you have a nut allergy, you could totally have hemp hearts. So this is what they look like. They kind of look like little seeds. The brand that I buy is Manitoba Harvest. Also, another good recommendation I can give is going to Bulk Barn. I think a lot of the times when we think of vegan ingredients, we're worried that they're going to be expensive. So I would say if that's a concern for you, then buying in bulk is always a great opportunity. And Bulk Barn has everything you need. So you can get like all your nuts there, you can get hemp hearts there, and like even things like nutritional yeast or all the herbs and spices we were talking about before is just like a really good resource.
That's great. Switching gears to baking, I have someone asking, one, how can you leaven batter without egg? What is your best egg substitute?
Sorry, what was the question? Baking without egg?
Yes. How can you, it says leaven a batter without egg.
Okay, so I guess it depends on the batter that we're thinking about. If I'm going to be doing like a baked good, like a banana bread or a muffin, my favorite substitute for egg is a flax egg or a chia egg. So you're taking flax seeds and you grind them into a powder and you add like a little bit of water. And in my cookbook, I have so many baked goods in my cookbook. I like would even just love to show you a couple examples. And oftentimes I will be doing a ground chia or a ground flax to make any of those baked goods, like any type of banana bread or any type of like muffin. So bear with me. So here's like the baking section. And I think a lot of the times people are like very intimidated by vegan baking, but it is definitely doable. So that would kind of be my go-to is the chia and the flax for baking. But on the flip side, when we're thinking about sort of those French inspired recipes, things like meringue, like this recipe, or a macaron, like this one, a flax egg is not going to suffice. And we vegans have a secret tip to making an egg white, which is actually something called aquafaba, which comes from the liquid of a can of chickpeas. So when you are draining a can of chickpeas, you know how there's that like water at the bottom? We save that and then we use it to make these like really like gourmet French inspired dishes, based recipes or baked goods or treats or whatever you want to call them. And it's just like a really good hack for anything that requires egg whites. So I think like question goes back to eggs. If you're looking for an egg white, then I would go with the chickpea liquid. And if I was looking for just like an egg for cooking and baking, then I would say chia, ground chia or ground flax.
That's great. Thank you. What are your thoughts on plant-based meats? Do you cook with them?
Yeah, so, oh my gosh, this is such a good question. I feel like everyone has such good questions tonight. So I think that plant-based meats really do serve a really good purpose. I think for the question where people were saying like, you know, I want to go vegan, I want to incorporate more plant-based vegan food into my diet. How do I do that? I think something like a mock meat, like Light Life or Beyond Meat burgers, is a great opportunity to prove that you don't need the meat to have that like delicious meaty texture or flavor that you're looking for. I personally didn't use it in my cookbook because I wanted to be able to show that you can recreate these flavors and textures with more whole food versions. I think that's where the mock meats kind of lack, is that they they typically aren't like a whole food form. They are more processed. So I think it serves its purpose if you're going to a barbecue and it's sort of like a treat, or, you're out for dinner and they've got like a vegan burger on the menu. But in terms of incorporating it into your everyday diet, if we're talking about health and wellness, which I know this session is about, I think that there's more opportunities with more whole food forms to kind of recreate that meaty texture that we're looking for.
That's great. Thank you so much.
No problem.
We got a couple more minutes here, so I'll ask maybe one or two more questions. In our pre-asked questions, there was a lot around the theme of affordability. So how do you deal with affordability when many vegan food alternatives or plant-based or healthier alternatives tend to be more expensive? Is there any tips or tricks you can give to help people find good deals? I know you mentioned that peanut butter is available at Walmart, so I imagine probably less expensive there maybe. But any tips or tricks on that?
I do have a lot of tips for that. And I think there's two facets or kind of two avenues that I want to go in. First is when it comes to like thinking about like vegan ingredients, I think there is a stigma that it is going to be more expensive. However, when we're actually thinking about the like our grocery shopping list, typically the most expensive things are meat and cheeses, and we're cutting that out. So I think that the thought is that we're spending a lot of money, but we're actually kind of just diversifying it into it, or kind of using that money and allocating it to a different part of our budget on food that maybe we're not used to spending the money. And so it feels like we're spending more. When we think of vegan diets, there's a lot of rice, which is really cheap, quinoa, and also another great protein source, speaking of protein. And then also like canned beans or even dried beans are cheaper than the canned version. So there's lots of really cheap options. So kind of breaking that stigma that vegan food is expensive is sort of like the first thing that I want to say. The second thing I want to say is where the price does come in is things like nuts. Nuts are expensive. They're not made here. They require a lot of water content. You are spending more money on things like nuts when that's something that people on a vegan plant-based diet are using a lot in their everyday cooking. So for that recommendation, like I said before, buying in bulk is a great way to save money. Another thing that I used to do when I was a student is I used to buy, because buying in bulk, it means that you're getting like a ton of almonds, and sometimes that can feel really overwhelming. So what I used to do is I used to partner up with friends who like to eat the same as me, and we would buy it together. So like we would do like a big shop, we would go to Bulk Barn, or we would use one of our mom's Costco cards and we would go to Costco and get that big bulk, and then we would divide it. And then we were saving the money, but also not like stressed about getting through like so many almonds. So those are kind of my two recommendations: buying in bulk and then splitting with friends who have like a similar diet to you and are interested in the same types of foods is a great way to save money. And then, like I was saying before, we are really kind of allocating that price into other factors. So keep that in mind as well, is that like, although you may be spending more on nuts, we actually are saving a lot on the meats, which are really expensive, and, you know, the cheeses and stuff like that.
That's wonderful. Thank you for those tips.
No
We'll do two more questions. We have a lot of questions, so unfortunately we're not going to get to all of them tonight. Just
if anyone wants to DM me too, I'm always available.
We can share your information for sure.
Yeah.
So with vegan plant-based diets, what is the best way to incorporate iron, or how do you get your iron in a vegan diet?
So this is a really good question, and I feel like it's really relevant to me, especially right now, because I have a 1-year-old, and just getting iron in babies in general is something that we really have to focus on. And when it comes to thinking of vegan food, you kind of have to focus even more on it because typically people get their iron from meat sources. So one of the things that I love to do, which is a great source of iron, is getting something called spirulina, which is a powder. Speaking of adding like a little bit more of a cost, spirulina is going to be one of those. However, you can get it at well.ca and it is a little bit cheaper. It comes in a powder, and basically what it is it's like algae, like from the sea, and they pulverize it up into this like very vibrant green powder, and adding that to things like smoothies is an amazing source of iron. Leafy greens in general are a great source of iron. So like things like spinach, things like broccoli, those are amazing sources of iron. We just have to also make sure that we're adding in things like a protein. So like a black bean, hemp hearts, tofu, something like that, because I think, and I'm not a nutritionist, so I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think what they call it is like a heme iron. So it's a different form of iron than a traditional meat-based. And so we have to kind of pair it with more of like a whole foods, like adding in brown rice or adding in beans to kind of get the same result. But again, that's also why I like to throw in spirulina. And I've been doing that a lot with my son because he's 1 now. And he doesn't get iron through like my breast milk anymore or anything like that. So yeah, I've been throwing in spirulina into my smoothies, or even things like I've been making like dosas, which is basically like an Indian pancake kind of, and I've been throwing like spirulina into that, and just being really creative as to like how I can just kind of get in that extra iron. I've been making like, I've got a recipe on my blog for a green goddess salad dressing, which is so good. Like you can put it on any type of vegetable, and adding a little bit of spirulina to that is like a great way to get iron.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Again, we have so many questions, so I apologize to our viewers if we haven't been able to get to them, but in the essence of time, we'll have to just give you one last question. So other than the 2 recipes you shared this evening, what is your favorite recipe from your cookbook that you enjoy the most?
Oh my gosh, that is like such a good question. So I really love my risotto recipe. I was actually considering making that tonight because it is, again, such an easy recipe. You're doing it over the stovetop, and like it really just requires you like adding a few ingredients and stirring, and it's just so rich and cozy and comforting. So I really, really like that one, the bourguignon for sure. One recipe that I also love, which I highly recommend, is my green beans almondine. It's so easy. You like throw green beans in a pan and you fry up some almonds with some lemon zest, salt, and garlic. And you won't believe that green beans could taste so good. Like every time we make it, my husband and I, we finish the whole thing. There's no leftovers. My son, who's 1, like loves it. Like it's just so, so good and so easy. So that's definitely on my list. And then another one I love, if people are into salads, I know I was saying like when you think of vegan eating, like it's only salads. I do love salads. And one of the ones I love in the cookbook is my salad niçoise. And that has a lot of protein. So it has green beans in it, but it also has chickpeas. It's just like full of so much flavor. The dressing is amazing. You can like literally drink it with a spoon. Yeah, it's really, really good. And like, it's very like an impressive salad that you could kind of serve as a main.
Well, that's wonderful. It all sounds delicious and it looks delicious. I've checked out your blog. I've checked out your app. It's fabulous. So thank you so much for sharing your passion for cooking and for those delicious recipes with us. We all encourage you to visit her blog at twospoons.ca. Lindsay will put that in the chat. And as mentioned, we'll be sending up a follow-up email within a week's time that will include the links to the recipes, the link to the blog, as well as a recording from this evening, so that if you want to try the recipes on your own time, you can follow along again. And again, as mentioned, we'll be randomly drawing names for those of you who tuned into the webinar this evening for a chance to win one of Hannah's cookbooks. And if you're one of our lucky winners, we'll be in touch with you by the end of the week. If you're interested in more alumni webinars, please visit our website at alumni.mcmaster.ca/events for a complete up-to-date lineup of our webinars and events that we have. And finally, a reminder to watch for that pop-up survey following this evening's webinar. And once again, thank you to all of our viewers for joining us. And to Hannah, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to share this with us. We really enjoyed it.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. I had such a fun time. You guys had amazing questions, and it is a true honor to be here. Thank you so much.
And Hannah, if okay with you, maybe in our email, we can also share your contact information if people reach out.
Of course, feel free to DM me, and yes, you'll share that contact information. We'll be in touch.
That's wonderful. Thank you once again to everyone for joining us this evening, and have a great evening.